Thank you, Dr. Batra. And I just want to give a reminder out to all those who are on Zoom. If you would, if you have any questions, submit them to the Q&A portion, not the chat portion. I'd now like to introduce Dr. Manish Jain, who's a professor in the Biochemistry and Molecular Biology department here, who will be talking about targeted radiotherapy for pancreatic cancer.
So thank you, Mike, for the introduction, and thank you to all the organizers for giving us this opportunity to present our work and ideas. So upfront, I'd just like to thank the people who have been involved in this work. So most of the work, what I'm going to be presenting, was done by Shailender, who's sitting in the audience here. And some of the past work I did in collaboration with Apollina and other members of Dr. Batra's group, Uwe Vittal particularly. And of course, Dr. Batra has been the guiding force behind all this work initially. And Satya has been involved in the animal studies. So this is the basic outline of my talk. Like, I'll just introduce you the concept of radioimmunotherapy and what that means. We call it now targeted radionuclide therapy. I'll try to convince you that MUC4 is a useful target for targeted radioimmunotherapy and other targeted therapies of pancreatic cancer. And I'll briefly talk about the challenges and opportunities, how we can optimize targeted radiation therapy, and where the field is going in future. So I'll not say much about pancreatic cancer. It's a challenging disease. The treatment options are limited and ineffective. In the context of today's talk, it's mainly drug resistance, it's poorly resectable, and main challenges are desmoplasia, and tumor is highly immunosuppressive in nature. So what my talk is focused on is radioimmunotherapy, which can be defined as the use of monoclonal antibodies in combination with cytotoxic radioisotopes. So the radiolabeled antibodies will target the cancer cells and the radiation will kill. That's the whole concept. So what you need for radioimmunotherapy is a target antigen. Here are a few of the examples like CD20, TAG72, MUC1, PSMA. But my talk is on MUC4. CD20 has been extensively successful in hematological malignancies, and two of the radiolabeled antibodies are the only two products approved for hematological malignancies. So these are the examples of the antibodies which have been tried in radioimmunotherapy, and the therapeutic nuclide, which could either be alpha emitter, beta particle emitter, or Auger electrons emitters. Most of the radionuclides in the field are used for imaging, but these nuclides also have therapeutic potential, which has not been fully exploited in solid tumors till now. So in terms of therapeutic output, what does radioimmunotherapy offer? So what it does is the tumors can be targeted in antigen-specific manner that takes the radionuclide to it. How it is different from the direct radiation therapies, you can irradiate a tumor only what you see with your irradiators, but radio-labeled antibodies will target the tumors which you cannot see, the occult metastasis. And that's where the beauty is. So it will kill the tumor cells in the antigen-specific manner, but also the bystander cells which don't express that target antigen will also be killed. And the therapeutic effect is dictated by the energy and the path length of the particles that are actually emitted from this radionuclide. So alpha particles have high energy but short range of action. Beta emitters have relatively lower but long range of action. So depending upon what you want to target, like micrometastatic diseases, alpha emitters would be the choice, and for the bigger tumors, beta. So this is just a table of all the therapeutic radionuclides that have been tested or tried in preclinical and some clinical models. The iodine-131 was the initial choice, but nowadays people are shifting to alpha emitters like actinium-225, which actually degrades into multiple daughter radionuclides, which have their own unique alpha and beta emitting properties. So, and a relatively manageable half-life in terms of clinical applications. But radioimmunotherapy in pancreatic cancer has been moving always on a slow pace because everybody assumed pancreatic cancer is a very challenging modality for this kind of challenging disease for this kind of a modality. So that is reflected in the literature. Basically, you just see very few papers and most of them coming from US. This is a review article which just came out, which summarizes the field, what has been done in radioimmunotherapy in pancreatic cancer. So coming to our target, that is MUC4. So MUC4 by Dr. Batra's lab has been demonstrated to be a therapeutically important gene. Apart from many of the roles that it plays in pancreatic cancer pathobiology, the most important from our today's talk is like it is highly expressed and correlates with the poor survival. And also the expression progressively increases with disease progression. So we have been working to exploit MUC4 as a target. So MUC4 is basically a two subunit. It's a single peptide that is cleaved at GDPA site. And the mucin-like domain, which is rich in tandem repeat, is the MUC4 alpha and the membrane-bound MUC4 beta. So to target MUC4, we have generated a series of monoclonal antibodies. 8G7, which recognizes the repetitive epitope, was the first one to be generated. And then we have generated several other antibodies. And this is what we wanted to test in radioimmunotherapy. We are also using these antibodies as cold therapeutics. We are investigating those too, but I'm not going to talk about today. So we radio-labeled 8G7 antibody, and this is just, we are looking at the uptake in the tumors, pancreatic cancer xenografts, which are grown in the as subcutaneous xenografts. So these are two different cell lines, CoLo and CAPN1, which express different levels of MUC4. And with the progression of time, this is iodine 125 labeled antibodies. So as the time increases, you do see accumulation of these radio-labeled antibodies. So in vivo, at least these antibodies can target the tumor. And this is what is reflected in this is the liver and this is the tumor. So as the time progresses, you do see progressive increase in the accumulation of the radio-labeled antibodies. So we have subsequently and very recently labeled these antibodies with lutetium-177, which is a theranostic kind of a radionuclide, because it is imageable beta and also therapeutic radiation. So this is an image with a 68 antibody. And what we see here is a subcutaneous tumor in the same animal bearing an orthotopic tumor. So 68 is MUC4 beta antibody and K2 is the control. So if you look at that, 68 is specifically more accumulating in the antigen-specific manner. And orthotopic tumors tend to have a greater accumulation. This result we also validated by fluorescently labeled antibodies. And if you see, compare the subcutaneous and the orthotopic tumor, when we cut them open, for fluorescence imaging, you have to cut it open to so you get a better image. So you do see orthotopic tumors tend to accumulate better on this antibody. So we went ahead and did therapy studies with lutetium-177 labeled antibodies bearing in the mice bearing CD18 xenografts. This is a human cancer cell line which expresses a high level of MUC4. And what we see in the yellow is that the radio-labeled 8G7 did lead to slower tumor growth. Other antibodies did have some effect, but was variable. The sample size was very small, so we cannot say it didn't work, but we had to kill most of our tumors because there was a lot of necrosis in the tumors in the subcutaneous form. So we also, that was a orthotopic xenograft model. We also validated this thing in a model where a mouse bears antigen positive and a negative tumor on the contralateral flanks. And this is a syngenic model. So these are the mouse cell lines derived from KPC models engineered for MUC4 expression. And what we see here is like if you have, this is a SPECT imaging again, I think the coronal view here, where the antigen negative tumor has lesser accumulation of this antibody as compared to the antigen positive tumor. In the isotype control, we don't see it. So these antibodies are targeting tumors in MUC4 specific manner. And we, again, in the syngenic model, studied the therapeutic effects. So this is a the effect on the MUC4 negative tumor growth. We do see minor difference with the radio-labeled antibody as compared to, so this is an isotype control. Because the radiation is circulating, you would see a little bit decrease. That's not very significant. But in MUC4 positive tumor, you definitely see a significant tumor reduction. But now this effect is again with subcutaneous tumor xenografts on tumor growth. This is not what we want in clinics. And so what are the challenges basically what we're dealing with? Right now, the data, what I showed was with intact antibodies, and they have poor pharmacokinetics. They circulate in the tumor for a very long time. And this we have done previously. We have compared intact antibodies with genetically engineered antibodies. And we do see that the intact antibodies tend to accumulate more in the tumors, but also tend to circulate for a very long time. So that results in their dose-limiting toxicity. So engineering antibodies can actually improve the pharmacokinetics, and engineered antibodies tend to accumulate, hit the peak much earlier than the intact antibodies. But so this is a summary of a lot of data actually from previous studies, where we have compared the half-life in the blood, tumor to tissue ratios. So we do see that the divalent and tetravalent antibodies are much better. So maybe MUC4 antibodies we can engineer and make them much better for therapeutic applications. Other challenges that we also saw that the engineered antibodies tend to actually degrade in the blood in a different manner. So basically, this is just a reflection of the size after injection in the blood. So dimer, the size kind of tends to decrease, and intact antibodies remain kind of more stable, and that's why they circulate for a longer time. That causes the toxicity. So, but engineering the antibody is not the only solution, because there are other barriers in pancreatic cancer, like the antibodies have to come out of the blood, diffuse through the stroma to reach the target cells. And what can we do about those barriers? So there are various ways, and this we have published long ago in a review article, that you can modulate the tumor barriers by various biological response modifiers. For example, you can degrade the collagen by collagenase. Those were the initial studies done. And we have shown some data with penetratin. I'll show you a slide on that. You can also alter the blood flow properties of the tumor vessels to improve the delivery of the therapeutic agents. So here I'm showing you an example of angiotensin 2. Basically, what is shown is that tumor vessels lack smooth muscles, so they don't constrict that much under the influence of angiotensin 2. So when angiotensin 2 is, so we engineered a divalent antibody where we had angiotensin 2 sequence, and when we studied the biodistribution of that within the tumor, we saw a more homogeneous biodistribution when we have the antibodies conjugated to angiotensin 2. So this is one way of kind of improving the intratumoral distribution in bigger tumors. In another study, what we showed was, like, if you use a combination of cell-penetrating peptides with radiolabeled antibodies, you can improve the retention of the engineered antibodies. And that's kind of significant because antibodies, upon localizing to tumor, they tend to leach out. So if you can retain them for a longer time, you can have a greater therapeutic effect. So the whole philosophy was, if you have a surface-bound antibody, if you internalize that, you will have a greater therapeutic effect. And this is what we showed with penetratin. So this is control, and this is the tumor here. So if you don't do anything, you hit the peak and then you lose that antibody. But if you have penetratin, you have a longer retention. So these are the values basically. With control, after 24 hours, you actually have about 60.4% of this is the intensity signal, as compared to what you have at 24 hours is what you hit at the peak at 3 hours. So it is pretty much the same, where here you see this leaching out. And again, just like angiotensin 2, we saw that penetratin in the intratumoral scenario improve the intratumoral distribution of the radiolabeled antibodies. So these are just two examples how we can improve the efficacy by targeting either the intrinsic properties of the antibodies or selecting tumor microenvironment selective agent. This is another example which we are focusing right now. So it's very difficult to actually talk with this. So this is endothelin axis, and what we are doing right now is targeting endothelin axis to improve the uptake of radiolabeled antibodies and also the other pharmaceutical agents. So the rationale behind that is the endothelin receptors are selectively upregulated in tumor vasculature, and there's high level of endothelin-1 production. So this is an example where endothelin A receptor antagonist, when we give in a mouse bearing tumors, if you look at the muscles, from the baseline, the change in the vascular perfusion is there, but not that much, but the increase in the tumor is much more. So the effect is much more tumor selective. And so this increased perfusion results in decreased hypoxia and also in the increased uptake of radiolabeled antibodies here. So BQ123 is an endothelin A receptor antagonist. So we actually are now focusing on this axis. And what we did angiotensin 2 bosentan, which targets endothelin receptor, and a combination leads to a more increased uptake of radiolabeled antibodies into the tumor without compromising the targeting to the other non-target tissues. So this basically data tells that its uptake selectively in the tumor that is impacted and not in the non-target tissues. So this is just an example where bosentan, what we showed was like, if you look at the radiolabeled antibodies or any other macromolecule like dextran, so these are the distribution of radiolabeled dextran, not radiolabeled, fluorescently labeled dextran. So this is a blood vessel. If you have control, it doesn't come out, but if you have bosentan, you have increased perfusion. So that would same principle applies to the radiolabeled antibodies. And it also changes the vessel diameter in the tumor, increased CD31 staining and accumulation. So we are, and also what we have seen is that the bosentan treatment actually decreases the dysplasia in pancreatic tumor. That is another barrier. So this particular signaling axis can target both the heterogeneous blood flow and also the tumor stroma. So where we are going with all this, basically we are now conducting experiments where we propose to use a combination of cell-penetrating peptides, angiotensin II, endothelin receptor antagonists, with radiolabeled antibodies and also with other pharmacological agents. So this, I think a combination of all this, how much, you said 5? 3, okay. So this is where radioimmunotherapy is headed. So, but radioimmunotherapy has only been used to target primary tumors in most of the preclinical studies. And this is not where actually radioimmunotherapy's major application is. Radioimmunotherapy can be used to target metastatic disease in an antigen-specific manner, maybe to target circulatory tumor cells or the residual disease. But preclinical studies have not been conducted in these clinical scenarios because there are no models. So what we are working right now are the models that can be used to test radioimmunotherapy in a clinically relevant manner. So one is, I showed the example of antigen positive and negative tumor, maybe orthotopic implantation tumor. We have also, Shailendra has also developed this model of hepatic metastasis where he injects the tumor cells into the spleen, cuts the spleen into remove the injected half of the spleen, and we have beautiful metastasis, a micrometastatic disease in the liver. So we are testing this kind of a model. We are also generating a model which is specific for MUC4, where we can induce the expression of MUC4 to see these MUC4 targeted therapies. So just in the last minute, what I'll tell is, I think it has been touched upon in the morning. Now, what was initially the interest in radioimmunotherapy, now it has become radioimmunotherapy, where basically the effects of radiation are actually in combination with immune checkpoint blockade agents because of the effects seen by in T cell infiltration, antigen presentation, and all those things. So TRT can also, but the thing is, you can, as I said earlier, you can irradiate with radiation therapy what you see. What you don't see can be targeted by TRT, and maybe a combination of that can be used. And I have a project where we are developing MUC4-based vaccines. The idea is to combine radiolabeled antibodies with the vaccine, and Shailendra is developing that project. So the rationale for that actually is one more came from Sarthi's experiment, where he showed that if you irradiate the pancreatic cancer cells, MUC4 expression is increased. So this again gives us a rationale that if you irradiate MUC4 pancreatic tumors, you will have increased MUC4. Antigen presentation and DC activation are the effects that has been shown by radiation. And if you give a nanovaccine in combination, maybe you can have a much more rational therapy, which is directed towards MUC4. So this is what he's planning right now to do, actually. Combination of MUC4 nanovaccine with radioimmunotherapy and immune checkpoint blockade agents. So these are the conclusions. Basically, MUC4 is a promising target for pancreatic cancer. Antibody engineering and biological response modifiers can be used to improve the efficacy, and animal models, what we are developing, would allow us for testing the therapeutic agents in clinically relevant disease scenarios. And now radioimmunotherapy, that is combining with immune checkpoint blockade agents and vaccines, I think is set for the prime time for pancreatic cancer. So this is the funding support, and I'll be happy to discuss during our last session.
Thank you.